Hi, everybody, and welcome to Transformational Healthcare. I am excited to be here today to be your host in today's report out. We have some really incredible report outs to do today in some areas that I'm really anxious myself to hear their report outs and their progress. So I literally just took a bite before the before this opened up. So give me a sec. I apologize. So I'd like to start with a reflection, and then spend a little bit of time talking about daily engagement systems. And you know, as I come before you today via Zoom, we are 234 days into managing this global pandemic, and in our small part of the world, in the San Diego region, this has been an incredible journey for all of us. And so just to start, you know, the picture that you see in front of you is the first plane that came from Wuhan, China, that brought us our first patients. And we kicked off what has been, you know, an incredible ride. I think we're still only in about the fourth or fifth inning. But the amount of work that's taken place over this last year in helping our region care for patients with COVID and work through patients who don't have COVID but need care, et cetera. It's been a really inspiring time, actually, to see the incredible leadership of all of you as we've done this work. And I couldn't be more thrilled to be the leader of this incredible team of people who are so committed to patients. And just want to have a moment of gratitude to all of you and to your teams, and to please express to your teams and your team members how incredible this has been. And we're not through, and we're going to learn how to live with this virus at least for another year. And transformational healthcare has been at the heart of a lot of the work that we've done, because we've changed so many processes on the fly, and the fact that so many people are getting the skills and the training needed to make process improvements and to drive change and to improve the processes has just been incredible. So thanks to all of you. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about and give you a window into how we're thinking about the year. So we really are beginning to think about more than just COVID. So I know that we're almost at the end of September, and so that's the end of our first quarter of our fiscal year, but we really are trying to lock into what we need to achieve this year and how to align our strategies with our goals, and then how those flow through down into the tiers. And so just want to spend a minute about that. You know, I don't know if you've seen our strategic framework. We've built it as a house, you know, with a bedrock foundation of culture around decision-making and accountability, creating a culture of engagement, and actively working on diversity, our foundation of financial sustainability and what we need to achieve there, you know, our delivery of excellent patient experiences, achieving high reliability, and building out our network, all which supports our incredible academic mission. And this is really the, you know, the framework under which, you know, all of our goals come from. And DES, daily engagement, is a big part of almost every single one of these pillars. And if you can go to the next slide. So as we think about these, just to give you, I'm not going to go through the detail at all, so don't worry if this is an eye chart for you. But what we tried to do is think about, so in terms of like the academic mission, the first one, what's the best measure of us really hitting it out of the park? And we decided a couple of years ago that the best measure was for us to be top 10 in Vizient. And at the time, you know, we were in the 55 kind of ranking. And so I thought it would probably take, you know, 3 to 5 years to get back in the top 10. And it literally took 2 years, because when this team of people focuses on goals and we're clear about our priorities, we achieve beyond expectations. So last year we came in at 6. This year we were able to maintain, and it looks like we're coming in at number 7. But we want these long-term goals to be really tangible, things that people can really, really get their heads around. Our U.S. News and World Report ranking, which is now, huge improvement over this last year, and we came in #1 in San Diego, tied with Scripps, and #6 in the state, and we're not stopping there. So next year we want to be #1 in San Diego, and we want to hit the top 5 across the state. So, and you can go through all of these goals, our HCAP scores, our engagement scores, what we're trying to do in diversity. So we've tried to create really tangible goals around this. Next slide. And so how this really becomes relevant to really the whole organization, and the desire to have 10,000 leaders and team members all working together to help us achieve our goal is our use of our daily engagement system that creates that alignment in order for us to achieve all these goals. So I'm just going to focus today really on that. And next slide. And so we're going to give you a little glimpse. If you all are doing your tiers, what I wanted you to see and know is that we take this really seriously, and we are holding our tier 5s every day at 10:30. So as you finish all your tier processes, we meet and do our tier 5. And here's a glimpse of our tier 5.
Right, so are we ready to serve our patients today without harm and without delay?
Yes.
Yeah. And are we ready to support our colleagues caring for our patients?
Yes.
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 All right, let's jump on in. Does anyone have a reflection to start?
I've got a story that was brought to me today, which was fantastic. One of our EVS workers was highlighted by one of our facilities engineering union reps. She was recognized for being the only one that stood up from EVS to go in, at the time, back in March, to go and work on the 10th floor in Hillcrest. And she just put on a smile and said, "I got this," and she went over and she helped all the patients.
That's great.
Thank you, Whit, that's excellent. All right, jumping in, so we'll go down to our step staff. Does anyone have any escalations?
Yes, I have an escalation on the La Jolla NUCMED scanner.
So can this resolve in 24 or 48 hours?
Approval, we can expedite, yes.
So also on experience, everyone should read the physician newsletter so you can hear where the women faculty are coming from.
Any other process escalations?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Patty, for including ID on this bioethics group. The group has kind of a different expertise, and it needs to be brought in.
I'll take that note, share too, and bring it up with OP.
All right, so let's go for announcements and any information to Cassie.
I have 2 announcements. One is that Patty will be announcing to the entire health sciences today about the exposure notification app being available. Please help advocate for this on the tiered huddles. Second announcement, I think everybody's aware that we crossed a milestone yesterday as a nation with over 200,000 deaths. We've had over 64 here at UC San Diego, and take a moment to think about all we've lost as a country.
Thank you. All right, let's move over to back to recognitions.
I've got a couple, one for the FE team for the repair of the UPS and telephonic and data connections. Also to Letitia Lee, who is the EVS worker I mentioned earlier. And finally, a combination of EVS sustainability for working on the waste management team contract renewal.
That's great. Congratulations to the team.
And I just want to recognize Ayelet Ruppin and Jody Travers for yesterday. They did a nursing and social justice forum. It was fabulous.
I'd like to call out to procurement. I think we avoided a huge issue here with the needle situation, and the team worked very hard to identify a solution. They came up with a really good one, which is switching the needle to a different vendor in a different size. All right, hearing none, let's go to our PDSA. Did we follow our standard work?
Yeah.
Yep. Did we start and end on time?
Yeah.
Was participation appropriate?
Yes.
Yes.
And were we accountable for our commitments?
Yes.
And what can we do to improve for next time?
New facilitator.
Thanks. So you can see how how our flow goes. You always like to put a little humor in our tier 5. So we do enjoy ourselves as we do that work, and I encourage you all to do the same. You can see that there was some, when we do look at our standard work, we did get some X's. So, we're not always green across the board. What I found sometimes, especially on Mondays, where there's maybe more to talk about, that we have a little bit harder time staying on track from a schedule point of view, but we work pretty hard to stay and have that discipline. So then, part of how we use DES in the daily engagement system is the ability to align. So back to our conversation about goals. So we have kind of baked those down to the areas of quality, service, access, people, and efficiency. So, if you think back to the house, those were the key areas. It kind of synthesized down into these categories. And so as we work through the tiers from tier 1 to tier 5, and we want to align our goals around those key areas. So next slide. So in tier 5, we've got our goals on the top of this slide. So you can see, I'll take an example of quality, that we want to achieve high reliability. That's measured by maintaining top 10 Vizient. And then, every day we take one alignment goal and have a conversation about how we're doing around those goals. And that's what we're hoping that we can really cascade down the organization. So for instance, if for us at tier 5 to maintain top 10 Vizient means that we're addressing the concerns that are coming with respect to maybe the delivery of care or a CLABSI score or a mortality issue, et cetera, that we would attend to that. But as you go down the organization, every single team member plays a role in quality and service and access and people and efficiency. And I think the goal of this process is to define how you align with that at the local level. And so our leaders, again, need to be thinking about, okay, how does delivering excellent experiences cascade to my team, and how should we align around those goals? Maybe it's, we need to be making a change in a process to turn over a room more quickly, or I can think of 100 examples, as you can too, but I think that the goal is in each of these categories in your tiers is to define some things that are very aligned with what you can change and what you can affect, and that it would cascade up and down the tiers accordingly. So that's really the goal, is to, what is your team's contribution to the goals and how do you measure progress? And the goal in daily engagement systems, our next big leap of maturity in this discipline is to really focus on this as part of the tier structure. Next slide. So, I've thought a lot about DES in tier 5 and what's working really well. And what was hard for me, to be honest, was I had to get very disciplined myself, much more disciplined than I would normally be about where I can talk about things, because I have things coming at me all the time and I want to talk to the team about it. And it's like, no, I need to take a step back and really focus the tiers on the issues around that we need to be tracking. And then maybe the broader issues I might take offline and work with the ops team on. But I think that was my hardest adjustment to the tier, is to be ultra disciplined. It helps that we have a monitor in Carlisle who's quite quick to tell me if I'm out of line, and that keeps me in line. But I think what would take us to the next level again is 100% adoption of DES through the system. We've come really, really far. And then the maturity around the goal alignment and the addressing of the goals and the tiers. So those would be my two kind of big things for this year with respect to daily engagement systems. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Ashley, and I'm anxious to hear the rest of the readouts.
Thank you, Patty. It's so exciting to think about where the organization is headed and how, what we need to do to help us get there. But I also am really excited today to take a moment to pause and think about how far we've come. And specifically related to the transformational healthcare journey at UCSD, which is really intended to support achievement of that strategy. And next slide. And as we look at, how are we going to achieve our mission, the number one thing we need to do is engage every single person here in relentlessly improving the value of care for our patients, and also doing it in a way that makes us love our jobs, right? So how do we make it easier to do the work so that we can deliver the best care? And this is not a problem just for leaders or for doctors or for front desk people. This is for everybody. Every single person in this organization can help us achieve these goals, and we need to partner together to do that. And that's really what Transformational Healthcare Journey at UCSD is all about, is being very deliberate in engaging every single person in improvement. Next slide, please. So our beginnings were humble. In 2018, we did a little proof of concept. Would these lean principles help us? And we did a couple of improvement workshops and some basic training, and it seemed to go well. So we thought, all right, fiscal year 2019, let's do a really big pilot. And we piloted in all of ambulatory. We rolled out the intermediate training, which is Greenbelt equivalent. So a lot of projects were happening. We rolled out the first version of the daily engagement system in our outpatient environment. We started offering coaching to leaders and team members that were starting to develop more of those structured problem-solving skills. And the impacts last year were excellent. And so this fiscal year, it was green light. Let's launch. Let's do this everywhere. Let's make sure that we're doing it in a way that's not siloed or separate, but really supports the institutional strategy and the achievement of those objectives in the house framework that Patty just showed. And let's get that daily engagement system embedded into our operations. Let's offer all the way up to black belt training. And so we focused very much on kind of helping enable all the other aspects in the organization. And I just wanted for a moment just say thank you to the Transformational Healthcare team. Matthew Helton, Lily Angelosi, Brian Hand, Carrie Benjamin, Mike Spencer, and Ariel Bamba have been just incredible in supporting the organization and leading us through this. And I also want to thank all of you, because there's, you being here today and your partnership over the last year, 2 years has been tremendous in terms of kind of constant feedback, trying things out, experimenting, helping make this something that really works at UCSD and feels like it's part of us and isn't just something we're doing on top of everything else or separate from our daily work. So I just think it's tremendous. And, being 2.5 years into a lean journey is, UCSD is just rocking it. People are coming to us for best practices already, and I think that's a lot to be proud of. Next slide, please. We've, this is kind of the original roadmap in terms of the parts of our transformational healthcare journey, that there's specific improvement events, building the lean capabilities, so tools and training, our daily engagement system to help with the accountability and transparency and making sure we're sustaining gains, driving that organizational alignment and really supporting the institutional alignment, helping every single person who works here know, yes, I am contributing to our organizational goals in these ways, and being able to have that really tailored to their role, and the leadership development as well, so that we're using these things to support our ability to design the care delivery models that allow us to scale and serve the patients in ways that are convenient and coordinated for them. Next slide, please. So specifically this year, I hope everyone feels really proud of their role in all of these items. On that journey to developing 10,000 problem solvers, over 750 staff and providers attended lean training this year. And out of that lean training, over 100 Greenbelt projects were completed. All of those projects, I'll give you a few examples later, have contributed positively to our mission, and so much impact, even just through going through a training. Last year, we were celebrating that 600 people were huddling daily. This year, it's 3,000. That's tremendous growth and evolution of the system. And our goal next year is actually for that number to be the full 10,000. And really help make sure that that system's really supporting all of us in staying connected, doing improvement work, innovating, making sure we're ready to serve our patients every day without harm and without delay. And we also continue to run improvement workshops. And I'd say you know, the impact of those is always tremendous, but the biggest thing that I'm excited to celebrate today is that they weren't all run by the Transformational Healthcare team this year, that you helped run these. We had workshops run by some of our doctors, our administrative leaders, our, you know, we've had incredible ownership of these events, kind of transition into how we do some of our improvement work and not just kind of relying on a central team to do it for us. And that's exactly the vision. And so really happy to start seeing us shift in that way this year. We also had a great partnership with IS this year, helping launch the Sprint program, looking at workflows inside of how we use Epic. And you know, in the 5-month pilot in the end of the fiscal year last year, over 95 providers received that one-on-one training and optimization with incredible results. You'll hear a report out from Sarah on that later today. We also did develop and roll out that black belt level training, the Lean Advanced training. And I just want to mention that if any of you have received Lean training elsewhere or have gone through the intermediate training internally, there are some spots available in the upcoming advanced classes. So if you've been thinking about it, just go for it. Pick a project that you're working on already, and there's a class starting in October and another one starting in November. So highly encourage you to continue your own personal Lean journeys. We also this year really focused on, you know, measuring impact and developing a scorecard to track the impact of the transformational healthcare performance. And I think that's actually really helpful on something that, you know, has such a multifaceted impact, because, you know, the impact is indirect, and figuring out how to measure that is so important to know that we're moving in the right direction. You can also see a lot of the impact from our training projects and workshops. We don't count every penny, and we certainly don't count every hour saved. But, you know, for a couple of the big ones, we measured, and, you know, millions in impact financially, as well as, you know, over 9,000 hours that people could spend on higher value add activities. And that's really what it's all about, is just maximizing our impact and being really good use of everyone's time. So that's really exciting. And another thing that I'm really proud of is that, you know, the engagement system that we've rolled out, the DES system, as well as a lot of the Lean tools, really helped when COVID came. And Matt, if you could go to the next slide. Having that foundation has really helped you know, us quickly be able to adapt a lot of this to help during, you know, the pandemic, and especially at the beginning. And you can see a lot of the Lean tools and methods here that that were able to be applied to provide support and partnership with everybody who was on the front lines and supporting behind the scenes. So a lot of value there, I think, that we were able to leverage the foundation already in place. And actually, I would say it had a reciprocal effect too, of also kind of accelerating our adoption of these methods and practices. And daily huddles really expanded during the pandemic, because it really helped with communication. And a lot of people, there's no desire to stop doing it now. So that's wonderful to have had that synergy this year. A silver lining, of course. Next slide, please. And I promised I'd show you some examples of some of the classroom projects that were completed this year. And you can see they span all of the pillars that Patty shared in the strategic framework. And so you can see impact on quality, service, access, internal satisfaction, and efficiency. And you know, there's no part of this organization you may work in that wouldn't benefit from improvement efforts. And so this is where you know, it's a journey of, you know, continuous evolution and adaptation, and looking at things and challenging them, and making sure that we are doing our best with what we have every day, and maximizing and supporting each other. And so just so much to celebrate, and I'm so excited to be able to do that. Next slide, please. And aside from the things that are really easy to measure, one of the things that we really want to make sure we do at UCSD is make sure that this isn't just one training and one project, that we're actually kind of creating a culture shift where in developing those problem solvers, that these aren't tools that are used just once, but that this becomes part of just how we operate. And so a lot of energy was spent this year kind of developing some of those cultural elements that really reinforce these positive changes. And so you can see, you know, a newsletter has now started to be published. If you want to hear what's going on, you're definitely welcome to sign up to receive that. We've tried to help with best practice sharing. So all of the classroom best in class nominees, A3s, are published onto Pulse. So you can see, you know, what were some of the best improvement efforts that happened, and is there something maybe you could adapt in your own area? We also tried to create a lot more support on Pulse, and so a whole subsite was developed just to support huddling. So if you want to get started or you want to take yours to the next level, there's a lot of great resources there to support you in that. Also with COVID, we found a lot of people didn't have as much time to attend classroom trainings. And so we put a number of quick improvement videos out on Pulse, 5 to 15-minute shorts that would talk about how lean tools can help in a pandemic, so that you might be able to get some quick access to training. And those videos have been viewed over 600 times. We created a LinkedIn page to keep students connected after the class, or if you participate in a workshop or want to, you know, talk to others that are huddling, and kind of create a community that extends outside of classroom walls or your own department. And similarly, there's a DES Champions community of practice that now meets monthly and shares best practices and really helps give feedback and evolve the huddles. And this year, you know, the big emphasis is really kind of a cross-functional team collaboration, so that we have our staff, our nurses, our physicians all huddling together and collaborating in those huddles, and everyone feeling like it's a really good use of their time and taking their operation to the next level. We also launched the Lean Collective. So sometimes people want to take the training, but they don't have a project, or sometimes people have a project, but they don't necessarily have time or someone to attend the training. And so it's kind of a matchmaking where if you have some improvement work you need done and someone's looking for a project to do, that we can kind of pair you up. And then the last thing I'm actually super excited about, recently launched, that now the new employee orientation includes a little short overview of transformational healthcare at UCSD, so that as we're onboarding people into our system, that they know that this is part of who we are and how we operate. So I love this image on the right of kind of the little yellow character kind of spreading, you know, the light, the joy, the benefit and the value, and kind of seeing the spread through the organization. I know we have a lot more ahead of us, but there's been so much progress this past year. I'm just super excited about it. So if we go to the next slide, this coming year, it's really, now we've launched the basic elements are there. So now it's all about evolution. How do we make sure that we continue to grow this, adapt it, evolve it, make sure that we sustain and we don't slip back. Next slide, please. And so for our training this year, our new edition is going to be a training on how to run workshops. And so we're calling it the Workshop Leader Program. And that's going to be available probably by the end of October. We're going to pilot our first cohorts. So if that's something you're interested in learning, how to run improvement events. And then we also want to make sure that, you know, everyone has access to the lean training, that this is something that is available to all of the health system. It is, but maybe people don't know it. So we're going to be working on making sure that everyone has access to the training. For DES, our goal I mentioned earlier is that 100% of our health systems huddling every day and has access to that communication pathway, that support, that issue resolution, that team building, partnership, and problem solving, and that we're really laser focused this year on getting the alignment piece working, so that we're connecting the whole organization and walking step in step with each other to achieve our goals. For Sprint, we also want to kind of take that to the next level, and in addition to offering workflow optimization within Epic, that we also offer some workflow optimization just in the operation. So that's going to be an exciting journey this year. And in terms of new offerings. We're piloting right now in PeriOp some value stream analysis consulting and thinking about how we kind of work through an entire service line to look for opportunities for improvement. And so that'll be an interesting pilot this year. Already a lot of momentum. And in terms of the culture, the best thing we want to do is really support the process of sharing best practices and celebrating the improvement efforts that are happening and making sure we have a connected community around this and that there's a lot of support and momentum. And of course, in tracking impact to make sure that we're always kind of doing that good job of making sure the needle's moving in the right direction on our goals. So next slide, please. I'm so excited to see where we go this year, and I invite all of you to be part of it with us. And it really is all of us. And I think that we're going to achieve great things together. And now, actually, I'm really excited that the next person speaking after me is Tracy McKee. She is going to present her improvement work, improving the cycle time for the population health intake process. She recently completed her training, and she earned her classmates' nomination for Best in Class. And this is really because of her excellence in applying her understanding of the concepts and tools that were taught in the course to her project, but also the impact of her project results. So welcome, Tracy.
Thank you so much, Ashley. So my project, as mentioned, was about revamping the intake process for enterprise population health and quality reporting. Next slide. The problem that we are having is I took a look at a period of 2 years, so February 2017 to February 2020, and the average project request intake time was around 102 days from the time it was received from the requester to the time that it was actually scheduled and we started working on it. And so you can imagine, as a result, our customers are like, what's going on, what's happening, we're dissatisfied, there's a backlog of requests, and then staff are frustrated because they have all of this requests and people coming at them. So the aim of this project was really to reduce the total cycle time from the moment the request was received to the time that we scheduled the project to start working on it. And so to really take a look at, where we're at in the project, I needed to create a swim lane to find out what were all of the inputs that happened during the workflow. And as you can see, there was some time delays in the red bursts. There was some reoccurring processes happening. And so those are the areas that we targeted. So our target condition, we wanted to reduce that total cycle time from 102 days to 30 days by May 2020. Next slide. So we wanted to really find what the root cause was for that 102 days. So I did a couple of the tools, which was the 8 wastes of downtime, and then also a root cause analysis using the fishbone. And I liked using both of these tools because I came up with different a wide variety of insight to what was causing the issues. So for one, the defect requests do not contain sufficient data to process, or there is a delay in the customer's response for the additional specifications that we needed. To where the fishbone, we came over and, there was a lack of training for some of our staff, or the requests were unclear. So that really pointed to the overall effect that our total cycle time was taking too long. And so we need to mitigate these areas. Next slide. This gives you an example of mistake proofing. So the screenshot to your left in the lower screen was the initial request that we had in ServiceNow. As you can see, it was just like the requester's name and detailed description. And so what we wanted to do is really make an elaborate request form that really guided the user or the requester to put in the elements that we needed to make an informed decision on how long it would take and what they exactly wanted. And so here our countermeasures were defect to prevention, waiting to notify, non-utilized talent to pausing to educate, and then the extra processing time to eliminating that time waste. And so we did this by creating the online request. So we built that out further. And then the request should automatically assign to our team, right? So a lot of times the original request form was going to the help desk or it was going to another team. And so we just aligned that to say, once they hit submit, go directly to our team so we can start looking at it. And then also, I put in a project scoring tool because I wanted to know from the requester, how important was this to them? How did it line up to regulatory or compliance? Where did it fall in the line of other issues or requests that they had going on? And then additionally, provide educational resources to the requester to up-level their knowledge and understanding of all of the population health tools. We just don't build registries or just reports. There's a lot of mechanisms and tools in our toolkit to explore. Next slide. So this is one of the countermeasures that we wanted to really improve on our resource library. So say what is population health and identify what tools are available. So requesters can come here and get some informed information before they put in the request. Next slide. So our implementation plan. So countermeasure 1, we went live with that new enterprise population health request form. It's available in ServiceNow, it's being used, and it's being assigned directly to our team. Great. Also, the project scoring tool is available. So this is all great. We were able to implement third. Then came along COVID. So of course, you know, there's been a delay due to the COVID pandemic and our focus being on that and then returning to campus and returning to work. So the new date for this, it was, of course, in April, May, but we've moved that out to October 2020. And so this is really building out that library resource for our requesters to go to. Next slide. So results, you know, with this project, we've delivered a centralized intake structure. We've been able to effectively triage and prioritize requests and process them. We've improved equitability and the timeliness. So the details of that, the online form has eliminated about 66% of waste from an average of 102 days to 40 days. And that's just by guiding the requester through a series of questions to get those key elements that we needed. And then assigning directly to our group shaved off about 5 days. So we're to 1 day because it just goes directly to us. And then we anticipate that once we get the resource library up, it will reduce the time 4 to 6 days. So that's still to come, but that's just an average that I think that we'll shave off. So we're getting close. Next slide. So how do we sustain these results and what are the next steps? So basically we're you know, directing all customers to the enterprise population health request form within ServiceNow. We're ensuring new customers to population health are provided the educational resources. And we're ensuring staff are compliant with following the intake guidelines. So making sure that they point them to fill that out. And the next steps is just to finish that, implementing the delayed resource library, and then also hold a retrospective review session after each intake process to identify more opportunities of refinement. Next slide. So Again, we've had 66% improvement. Baseline assumptions was 1 analyst, 12 meetings at a duration of 90 minutes long. Overall, through the calculation, we can repurpose about 300 hours per year for this. So internally, with a group of 6 staff, this helps us a lot. Next slide. So my project takeaways and lessons learned is it's challenging to make this project a priority, but do it. The ability to match our organizational language on process issues need with Lean Six Sigma is a journey, not a sprint. So, you know, as you're going through this and you're starting to get the terminology going, you know, you need to help people along who may not have had the classes. It was difficult for me to refrain from going straight to a solution. I just wanted to jump to it and I had to refocus. And well-defined and accurate requirements are key to any improvement project, and utilize the tools. The tools helped a lot, and I have continued to use them today after the class. Next slide. So that was my improvement project. Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Reeves.
Thanks, Tracy. Awesome project. Thanks for sharing. So hi, my name's Jeff. I'm a general surgery resident here, and I could not be more excited than to be able to introduce to all of you the Perioperative Efficiency Project, i.e. PEP, and the PEP team. But I'm going to turn things over first to Beth Malakowski, who's one of our awesome project managers in Periop, and who has really helped to spearhead this initiative. So thanks for co-presenting with me, Beth.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. It's my pleasure to join you in presenting our PEP project here today. Next slide, please. As we've undertaken this project, we've consistently heard the pride that our staff have in working here at UC San Diego Health and in delivering world-class surgical care. But at the same time, there's acknowledgement that we're performing below national benchmarks in operating room efficiency. Our data shows that 65% of cases are delayed, and that's resulting in poor patient experience, significant overtime costs, and low satisfaction and morale among our providers and our staff. And when you think about it, with every delay, there's a patient who's waiting, feeling perhaps anxious, probably hungry, and we know that together we can do better. Next slide, please. So we've undertaken a collaborative journey in continuous improvement. And in fact, this journey to high reliability began quite some time ago. In the last few years, we've tripled or quadrupled our surgical capacity with the opening of several new facilities. We've put in place the new triad leadership structure, and we brought in consultants from Deloitte to help us with our governance and leadership structures and kick off our highest priority work streams. This year, we've leveraged our internal teams to continue the journey. In February, we conducted an RPIW to tackle the first step in our workflow, the surgical case request order. And that work has since delivered vast improvements to that step and downstream. Then, as is true for everyone, you can see we hit a bump in the road with COVID-19, but in May, we were able to resume elective surgeries and get back on track. So now recently, we've begun to address the next steps in our value stream with this new project that we've branded the PEP, or Periop Efficiency Project. Next slide, please. We spent time constructing this value stream map to document the steps in our current state process and identify pain points and areas of opportunity. And we looked at the full picture from patient arrival all the way through PACU. And while this slide contains a lot of boxes and lines and numbers and is too much to absorb right here, the takeaway is that we use this tool to understand the complexity of our current state and to identify the biggest areas of opportunity. Next slide, please. Prioritizing these areas of opportunity led us to construct the PEP, which consists of 5 one-day Kaizen discovery events in September and October. And in fact, we've already conducted 2 and we have 3 to go. On each of these days, we're pulling together key stakeholders and subject matter experts to dig into specific process areas to do fact-finding and root cause analysis. We're building standard work and trial and countermeasures. Then in November, we'll bring together all the lessons learned in a week-long RPIW that we're calling PEP Week. And this will be a week-long working session to give team members the space and the time to build the work, to implement, scale, and sustain the improvements. Jeff?
Next slide. Thanks for that overview, Beth. So one of the most challenging barriers to efficiency and change in general in peri-op is that it really does take a village to care for our patients. And pretty much with everything in healthcare these days, the system is just so complex and there's so many different silos that it can be really challenging to communicate with each other and move the needle. And there are 20 different teams, all with multiple team members who touch our patients in some form or fashion on the day of surgery. And that makes it pretty easy for things to fall through the cracks. At the same time, this village is very diverse and filled with underutilized talent. Next slide. And somehow we've been able to recruit representatives from every single one of these areas. And people are voluntarily reaching out and taking time off their days to participate and support this initiative. It's truly been humbling and fun to see the engagement that we've had thus far. Next slide. We've already had 2 Kaizens, as Beth said, and people are having a good time. They're getting stuff off their chests. Our surgeons are going by their first names. And we're starting to see standard work be created in areas where it was previously non-existent. And my favorite thing is that people are starting to ask why. And why do we have to do that? And because that's how we've always done it is no longer an acceptable answer in peri-op. And that's been pretty fun. So next slide. This has been a somewhat massive undertaking for our department because of the complexity and the 4 different ORs and how many people are involved. And some might say it's too much to do at once, but we're doing it. And you all will hear from us again. Matt is kind enough to have us back next month where we'll give you a summary of each one of these 5 Kaizen events and what we talked about and some of the big takeaways. And then we have our RPIW coming up in November, our PEP week, and you'll hear from us after that as well. So we're very excited about this, and thanks for having us here to kick this off. That's all we have, and I'll turn it over now to Amy Rockefeller. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reeves and Elizabeth. As mentioned, I am Amy Rockefeller, and I'm the core lab manager here at the Comm Lab. And I want to give you an update on what we've been doing over the past few months to improve COVID processing and accessioning efficiency as COVID testing volumes have begun to expand. Next slide, please. So just to give a little bit of background on kind of what's been going on over here is the lab has been really challenged over the past 6 months to validate and deploy COVID testing over a very short period of time. And that's required for processes to be established very quickly, and they often change day to day. So the lab had to be very flexible and innovative to ensure that tests were being processed and accessioned and moved on to the testing laboratory within a quick period of time. So as things ramped up by the end of April, May, we were processing about 400 samples a day, and we were being able to maintain a 24-hour turnaround time on those. But more testing was needed, and we needed to expand. So we took on this project so that we could ensure that the processes that we already had in place would be sufficient for the expansion that we needed. Next slide. So to help with this issue, we employed some of our lean training tools. And we needed to identify some of the inefficiencies that were occurring in some of our COVID processing and accessioning areas. So the problem that we were coming across is that we were currently able to process about a maximum of about 1,000 samples per day to meet the actual need, but it was forecasted that we're going to need about 2,000 tests per day by the beginning of September, and by the end of the year, possibly up to 6,000 tests a day, and still trying to obtain those turnaround times of 24 hours. So as you can see here, we have so many departments involved. It's not just the laboratory. We've got collection sites and couriers. In the middle, we have the processing and accessioning area, and then it moves on to testing. And then those little thunderclouds we have in the middle are areas where we identified we could make some improvements. Next slide, please. So what we did is we went to our staff. We asked them, what are the rocks in your shoes? What are the things that are slowing you down and stopping you from being able to process these samples efficiently? It was, the size of the batches we were receiving from leaking samples, expired orders, having to use 2 different information systems to get our data, and multiple other things. We also went and we visited the staff and talked to them, did a Gemba, and got their input for areas that we could improve. So from there, we mapped some processes, we did some root cause analysis, and identified some of the areas that we could improve quickly. And as you can see there in the pictures, these are all the areas that are encompassing this process that we have, from the collection site to the couriers dropping off specimens, samples being received and handled, moving on to accessioning. From there, the samples are moved on into the testing department and molecular, and then lastly is the analyzer that they all run on. Next slide, please. So from our spaghetti map here, looking at the processing area, we saw that we were taking making a lot of extra effort in trying to get our samples where they needed to be in the testing department. They were coming from receiving by the couriers, being placed in a refrigerator. Staff would walk over to the refrigerator, grab more samples as they needed them, and then they would put them back in the refrigerator for the testing staff to come get them. So from there, we decided that we have a delivery robot that we hadn't been utilizing for this. So we made sure to bring our robot into the picture. So now he brings specimens directly over to the staff. Can you go back one slide? Sorry. Thank you. And then we also were collecting the, controlling the batch sizes that were coming from the collection site to ensure that it was more efficient to handle smaller numbers of samples coming in at a time versus we were getting bags of 100 samples all at a time. So moving those batches smaller helped us work through those a lot quicker. We also had, if there are samples with anomalies, issues that can't be handled quickly, the accessioners no longer handle those. They move them over to a lead that works through those to allow the accessioners to carry on with their processing. So as a result of some of our improvements here, we cut down about 10,000 steps a day by using our robot. His name is Roy. We are still keeping our 24-hour turnaround time and less. And we are up to almost 2,000 samples a day, keeping that turnaround time. And lastly, we are in the final phases of working through a customer service call line that will kind of intercept phone calls from interrupting the accessioners and the testers throughout the day, handling calls regarding specimen requirements and result information that's needed. Next slide, please. So this is our robot, Roy, and we thought we'd share just a little video of what he does over here. If you could. So here's Roy, and he's leaving some samples for one of our techs there, and then the tech also is grabbing samples for him for processing. and then he will go back to where he came from, or he can go to multiple departments all over the laboratory. We have a pretty big floor plan over here, so it really saves us in delivering samples throughout the laboratory. So he kind of head back in where he needs to go. But I think using Roy for delivering samples has really made a difference, especially in all the steps we were doing today. So next slide. So reflections, you need to go to the staff and find out what the rocks in their shoes are. I think that was key in us finding some of the solutions to the problems that we had, and the staff, really came up with some of the greatest ideas that we used to move this forward. And lastly, using the lean methods to standardize our processes and create a consistent workflow has really allowed us to manage the volume that has been coming in. And I think we're ready to keep on increasing as we go, and we will continue to be able to manage those 24-hour turnaround times. Next slide. And thank you. And I just want to do a quick thank you to Thad Anderson, Marlon Abergina, Grace Francisco, Edgar Rodriguez, and the entire processing team, because without this, we would not have accomplished this so quickly. And next, I'll pass it off to Sarah Pyatt.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So we will do this super fast. We'll make up some time. So here is our sprint program. This is just a super quick overview of the leading up to your sprint. And Matt, if you want to go to the next slide, we'll kind of give you in summary what we want to expect whenever we're coming to your locations. So here you're going to see a few different images. So if you look on your right side of your screen, June to August, this is a single provider's view of whatever they're going through a sprint. So you notice the arrow is showing some documentation time after clinic hours. And these are really some areas that we want to focus with our providers to really help them have higher engagement while at work, which means more personal time at home. So this is what we're here to help them with. And this is proof that they're actually working during their one-on-ones to make the changes. Below that, you can see the providers' comments where they felt the difference personally, which is another big thing that we want to help everybody feel better about their work, about their output, and that they're making a difference. Because that's what our providers are doing here. This is what our entire staff is doing here at UCSD. We're here to make a difference for our community, for our patients, and for everybody we work with. And if you look over to your left-hand side, this is their post-survey of Sprint. You can see everything has increased of the way they feel about the EHR, the way they feel like Epic and our team is helping them take care of their patients and our focus. The one area you can see is that Epic is easy to use. And we understand that, and as the organization, we're really diving in to help and support all of you with our one-on-one training. So as we're coming around with sprints, please remember to sign up. We're eager to give you this training, work with you, and also to provide changes in your EMR, in your clinic that we can help in that area. And I'll do a plug here for our Home for Dinner training. If you're eager to have your one-on-one and to really start that process now, you can go to the Pulse page and search for Home for Dinner, and they can definitely help you out in that area. But our goal is to make you efficient and satisfied with the EMR and to move us through. Matt, you want to go to the next slide? Another thing you can do is that if you have access to epic.com, there's the Signal page that you can also request access to Pulse on the Epic site itself, and you can dive down into your department view area to gather information from yourself. So clinic managers, providers, you can all go in and request access, and you can also do some insight, and we're also happy to help answer some questions should you have any about this area, and we can also help provide supporting documentation as well to move forward. And with that, next slide. Thank you all for having us, and we're going to introduce Patty Mason. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Thanks for catching up on time there. I appreciate that. So I think we're at the end of our program today, and I just want to thank all of the leaders who presented today. These are all programs that are critical to the success of the health system to help us in our journey to higher reliability. And just want to thank you all for your leadership and engagement. We are still aspiring to that 10,000 people really leaning in together and aligning together. Thank you, Ashley. I was looking for that. Thank you, Brian. So I'll leave you with just encouragement to not only be a problem solver, but to bring the rest of your colleagues with you so that we can create the best health system in the region and in the state and even beyond. So thanks, everyone.